Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, we're going to talk about children's video calls with the narcissistic parent. Now, if you guys listen to me a lot, you will know that I am not a fan of calls or video calls, audio or video between the two households. I think it puts a lot of pressure on the children. It puts them in the middle. Sometimes it can't be helped. You live far away or whatever. But if you're in close proximity and you both see the child every few days, I think they do more harm than good. That's my experience with it. But I know that sometimes, despite all of that, we have court orders that say these calls are going to happen. So when they are happening, if you're dealing with a narcissist on the other side, they are always looking to reach through with their tentacles, so to speak, into your world and create chaos, right? So I'm going to help you deal with some of that and kind of give you some ideas of what does and doesn't work in this situation. If you find this content helpful, don't forget to hit like on this video. Also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. A large percentage of you are not subscribed, so please make sure you do that. And also feel free to share on social media. This is a really tough journey on the child custody path. And it's not just the court stuff. It's not just the narcissistic stuff. It's like all of the chaos together, right? And it just feels like it comes in waves, and it just can be so anxiety producing and confusing and stressful. So I'm going to try to take some of the stress out of that for you, at least around this topic of the video calls. And I want to talk about video calls specifically because I think what happens is a lot of times the narcissistic person is either trying to use the call to gather information, right, that they believe they can use against you, whether they actually can or not, or they're trying to control and parent the child through the phone during your parenting time. That's my experience of kind of the two pieces that happen. Now, if you're doing calls with the child when the child's in the other parent's world, I would say try to minimize those. If you see that the child is stressed, if you see that the child is constantly watching, what's going on behind the phone, like they're looking at the other parent for cues and all that kind of thing, that tells you that child's in the middle and they're stressed. And I would really try to keep those to a minimum just for the well-being of your child. But one of the things that's helpful to do is to maybe have a designated place where the child always does the call, especially when you're dealing with younger children. I think if you want it to be their room, that's fine. I don't have any issue with that, particularly if they're older. I think that's probably very appropriate. When they're younger, sometimes we're kind of like, well, they have technology issues or different little things happen on the call, and or they just kind of space out and start doing something else. If they're super tiny, there can be all kinds of reasons that we kind of feel like we need to monitor to a point what's going on. So I would have a designated space where this is always happening. That way your child gets kind of accustomed to it. They know this is where we go, just like when we do a timeout, right? We've got a timeout spot usually, or a chair or whatever it is. So I want to kind of do the same thing with the call, is we have a designated place where this happens and it's all set up and they know kind of what the guidelines are around it. Now, when your child's doing the call, I will say that I think it's best if we busy ourselves with other things, right? Do your laundry, do your dishes, go send those emails from work, whatever you need to do. Don't be hovering. Don't be in the same space. Try to give the child a measure of privacy, even if that isn't as far as letting them go into their room. I know sometimes that high conflict people will take pictures of the child and then try to sort through the background and figure out what's in there. What can they use against you? What can they find? Oh, there's a sock on the floor. There's this, there's that. They're always looking for things that they can potentially use. So again, I understand why we, might want to control the environment. And sometimes you have them do something like the other parent will say, hey, go to this place in the house, or go to your room, or go do whatever. When you have that situation and you don't want the child in the other room for some reason, then you just say, no, the child's going to remain at the table. No, Freddie's going to remain at the table or whatever it is. And that way you're drawing that boundary, but you're not engaging in an argument. I wouldn't be saying things like, why are you telling him to go to his room? You don't get to parent during my parenting time. We don't, don't get into an argument in front of the child over it. You just very firmly say, nope, he needs to sit right here to do the call. If you feel so inclined, you could send a follow-up message later on the parenting app or whatever, but I don't like doing that. I will sometimes do that if there's a situation where the parent says, did you get the note from your teacher today about this thing or that? Well, I don't know. Well, or the kid says, oh, I got an invitation for a birthday party on Saturday. And the other parent says, well, what time is it? Because that's my parenting day. And the kid's like, I don't know. If you overhear that and you have that bit of information, what I always recommend people do is send a follow-up message. If I assume you're possibly using a parenting app, if you're watching me, or if you're using text, email, whatever that is, send the follow-up message after the fact. Don't chime in on the call and go, oh, the party's at 2 p.m. Because what that does is that just opens the gateway for that interaction with you. And a lot of times that's what they're angling for, especially in the very beginning. They're trying to draw you back in. When you think about your boundaries with the other person, you have to think of it sort of as a wall, okay? And we don't cross that wall no matter what's going on, for the most part. Now, again, I wouldn't let them say to the child, oh, go here, go there, and have the child moving around the house. You say, no, they're going to stay put. That's fine. You can draw that kind of boundary, but no other conversation about it. And if that person says, well, why? The child should be able to choose where they want to go, blah, 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 whatever. You don't reply to that. Okay. But if it's something like, oh, the birthday party's at this time, then you're just going to go over to your app or your email or text or whatever and say, here's a copy of the invitation. The party's at 2 p.m. on Saturday. The party that the child mentioned to you on the phone is at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And that way you can communicate that, assuming that that's kind of the age the child's in. If the child's 14, 15, 16, those ages, they can communicate all that themselves. You really probably don't need to be doing that. But I'm assuming that we're probably talking about, 3 through 10, somewhere in that age range, 3 through 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. Then you probably are communicating about those types of events. So if you have information the other parent needs, it's fine to provide them with that, but don't do it on the call because, again, with a high conflict person, it's just part of how they rope you in to having this conversation with them. Have your designated place, okay? Draw a boundary when you need to, like when they're trying to parent during their call. But other than that, I wouldn't get involved. I would stay out of it. Honestly, if the child's in their room or whatever, kind of out of sight, out of mind, you don't have to overhear it. You don't have to be tempted to hear it or any of those things. Now, again, I know sometimes technology issues, whatever, they're using your phone, whatever the case may be, you may not want them to go to their room, and that's fine. And then the third thing I would do is if you have information the other parent needs, don't send it during the call. Just send a follow-up message after the fact, okay? And that's kind of the ways that you can keep sort of that narcissistic or high conflict person push back a little bit to where, you're sending that message that, hey, you don't get to step over into my world this way. I'm not going to allow it, but I'm also going to be reasonably communicative about information that you actually do need. But that communication isn't supposed to happen during the child calls. I mean, most orders will say things along the lines of, the calls are only for the child to have visitation with the other parent. All other business will be discussed between the parents at a separate time. So they don't want the two of you having discussions about other things like birthday parties or pick up and drop off times or whatever the thing may be. The court doesn't want you having those conversations in front of the child. The purpose of that call is only for the child to visit with the other parent. And when the child has to listen to you and the other parent kind of going through the call to have those types of discussions, it puts even more stress on them because now they're sitting here with the two people that, are the most important to them, listening to them kind of argue or go back and forth or whatever. And they sort of feel like, okay, what am I supposed to do in this situation? How do I handle this? Am I supposed to fix this? Their little brain starts running on how they're supposed to behave in that situation. So we just want to take all that pressure off of them, not have any of that happen, only kind of draw that boundary when we absolutely need to, when the other parent's trying to dictate about things in our world. And other than that, just keep your wall built. That's the most important thing when you're dealing with a narcissistic or high conflict parent. Okay, if you'd like help dealing with these kinds of issues or any other issue in your child custody situation, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's information on that page about my group coaching programs for moms and dads, and also information about my high-level one-on-one exclusive VIP coaching program. And you can look at that information and figure out what would be a good fit for you. All right, see you guys next time.